Hey guys, Ranger here, and welcome back to the sixth and final part of my BronyCon Remembrance and Tribute video series. And this video, the last few videos that I've done have covered arriving in Baltimore, and the con itself. This final video is detailing whenever we left Baltimore and headed back home. And I, I think we woke up about normal time, about 8:30, 9 o'clock that morning. I remember whenever narrator and I woke up, we basically went ahead and immediately started carrying all of the stuff that we had from our hotel room uh, down the street to his vehicle. And I remember uh, the first thing the first set of stuff that we carried, we basically decided he had a lot less stuff than I did, but we decided that we were going to carry like all of the luggage itself, uh, which for me I had like 3 or 4 bags. Like I had a big I had a big suitcase, a rolling no, sorry, I had a rolling luggage bag, another carry bag that had my laptop in it, uh, my book bag that had my camera and everything in it, my tripod, and so we made the decision to carry that stuff to the vehicle first, and I think we were going to come back and get our BronyCon merch and get it last because we didn't want to put it in the vehicle and risk putting the other stuff on top of it or risk it getting damaged. So I remember we went ahead and we got the stuff and started carrying it down the hall, and I remember just feeling immediately like it was Monday morning. It was Monday, August 5th, and I just did not want to leave. Like already I felt that, oh my gosh, it's Monday. BronyCon is over. The best weekend of my life, and it was over. And I remember we carried the stuff and put it in the vehicle. And there are a few other memories that I have that I want to detail before I continue with that, um, that I remembered after I did the other videos. One memory that I have was I took 2 pairs of sandals with me. One was a more cloth pair of sandals, and the other one was a more vinyl pair of sandals. And I remember I accidentally left the second pair, the black vinyl pair, in the back of his vehicle, of narrator's vehicle. And I remember for the first 2 days, on Thursday and Friday of the con, I wore the tannish cloth ones, and then on the morning of Saturday, I went back to the vehicle and got the second pair, and I wore that pair on Saturday and Sunday and on Monday. And I remember another thing that happened, which was really cool, was whenever we were in the hall of, whenever we were on the Sky Bridge or the Skywalk, the Sky Bridge, I believe, waiting in line for one of the uh, Hall of Chaos panels. Um, there was a guy that was standing there, and I remember we started talking to him, and I remember he went into the Hall of Chaos with us because he was in line for that, and whenever we came back out, it was a panel where I don't remember which event that it was. I don't have my book in here with me, but it was the Hall of Chaos panel. It was the event where there was 2 events back to back in the Hall of Chaos, and so we had to come out of of that ballroom and come back out into the hall and then get back in line again to loop back around. And I remember as we were standing in the hall of the Hilton Baltimore Hotel, um, I remember the guy like the guy pulled out a bottle of uh, I think it was either he pulled out a little bottle of spray deodorant, and I remember he uh, asked narrator and I if we wanted to borrow some. So we did. Um, and I remember somehow we got off on the subject of YouTube, and I remember something came up. I don't remember how, but somehow it came up that I happen to have a channel, and I remember him asking me what channel that it was, and so he had his phone out, and he looked. I told him what my channel name was. He went to my channel, and it just immediately just subscribed right there. And I remember telling him thanks. Once he found out that narrator had a channel, he also subscribed to him too. And then another thing that I remember happened, which was kind of funny, was one of the nights. I don't remember which night it was. It was Friday. It was either Friday morning, Saturday morning, or Sunday morning. I don't remember which one it was. I think it might have been Friday or Saturday morning. I remember I happened to wake up, and I remember narrator. I heard kind of a commotion in the bed next in the bed next to the one I was in, and I happened to in it was just a little bit a little bit light in the room, and I kind of looked over and I could see narrator was like kind of flopping around like a fish in the bed, and then it just got quiet, and I thought, okay. It turns out he actually ended up getting a cramp in his leg or his foot, one or the other. I know that feeling. I've had that before, but he ended up getting a cramp, and I didn't know that at the time, and I didn't want to say anything because I thought, what if he's asleep, you know? And I didn't want to wake him, and so I thought, okay, is he alive? Like he was flopping around like a fish out of water. Is he alive? And I remember thinking, okay, hopefully he'll shift positions before the morning. And I remember like that morning, whenever I woke up before he did. I remember like I looked over and he had shifted positions, like he had rolled over or something. And I remember thinking, whew, okay, he's still alive. Yay. Like BronyCon was exciting, but I didn't know it was so exciting it could kill you. Another few memories that I have from BronyCon 2019. I remember on Friday or Saturday during one of the. It was I think it was the movies and pony voices. The 21 plus panel, and I remember it was the one where they were having audio difficulty, and I remember walking in, and I remember whenever they were having difficulty for that, I don't remember who it was, but I remember one of them, one of, I don't remember if it was the Lost Narrator or Magpie Pony. I don't remember which one it was, but one of them was like voicing Tree Hugger. They were doing like a voice of Tree Hugger, and I remember in the in like in a really great Tree Hugger impression. Whenever they were having technical difficulties with getting things playing, they getting the videos to play, they whoever it was in the tree hugger voice was like, "This is bullshit, censored," and I remember everybody was laughing. It was so much fun, and then I remember in the uh, thank you Ma Larson panel. Uh, I think it was AC Race Best was up there, and it was him or Saber Spark, one or the other, had like a giant like one of those like a giant inflatable Sharpie or like a crayon or something, and they were like handing it to Ma Larson at one point, and I think a couple of them were like kind of batting it back and forth. And I remember I think it was Race said something about uh thanks for giving Twilight her wings, and it was I think he said it sarcastically. And I remember M.A. Larson said something, you think that was nuts. I had to write the thing, and it was just hilarious. Like, you thought that was crazy, or you thought that was nuts. I had to write the DA thing, and it was hilarious. It was hilarious. And then I remember, um, like at the end of the M.A. Larson panel, like everybody just started clapping, and then I think everybody did a thanks M.A. Larson giant cheer, and then I think at someone made a mention from the audience, or it was Race or Saber, one of them, that said to M.A. Larson, "Your book sucks." And I think at the end of the panel, at the end of the M.A. Larson panel, thanks M.A. Larson, he again said something like, "Buy my book," and it was hilarious. And then during um the Jackbox game, I think it was Jackbox. I remember there was I think it was Nicole Oliver. I think the name that she used while she was playing was I think it was Dirty Selly, and I remember at one of them, I think it was Jackbox, or it was one of those 21 plus panels. I remember they showed a picture of like some sort of exotic bird, and it said like uh where did this bird come from, or what happened to this bird? And one of the answers uh was Big Mac's anus, Big Mac's butt, and everybody, I think a lot of people picked that answer. And then there was some sort of question about there was like a hilarious question, something about the sun or something, and one of the answers was Celestia's vagina, like Celestia's vag or something like that. And I mean, everybody was laughing like crazy. I mean, it was just so much fun. There was just so much laughter in that room, and I remember those panels, some of that stuff in them, and it was just so much fun. And I wanted to also document what I kind of remembered, the few things I remembered about that as well. And but I but I remember being in there and looking around, seeing so many people laugh, and it was just so much fun. It was so much fun. But getting back to heading back to the vehicle on Monday, I remember we we got back to the hotel, and I think we got back into the lobby, and I think we were going to get the cooler at that point, and we might have already got the cooler. No, actually, we were going back to get the cooler. We were going back to get the cooler, and we were going to take that back next, and then finally the BronyCon merch that we had. And I remember as we got back into the lobby, I heard someone say Ranger Bravo, and I couldn't hear 100% clearly at first, but it sounded like they said Ranger Bravo. And I just kind of stopped and looked, and I saw this girl sitting in the lobby. And I stopped, and she was looking right at me. And she got up and come over towards us, and it turns out she knew me from YouTube. And it turns out it was Ori Dreamcatcher. And got to meet her. She got to meet me and narrator, and uh, we stood there talking a few minutes, and then she made a mention that there was somebody else, a friend of hers, that was supposed to be coming by as well, and they also wanted to meet me. And I remember I remember she asked if we had time to wait, and uh, we said sure, yeah. And I remember we while we waited, I remember narrator and I went on back up to our room to get the cooler. And I remember we brought the cooler down and we got back into the lobby and we started talking to Ori again. And then her friend ended up showing up, which turned out to be the Cunning Husky, Chaos. And so I got to meet him. He got to meet me and narrator as well. And so all four of us just basically just stood there talking, and we talked about the con, and I remember it got emotional at one point because like we just I remember like me and uh, Ori and and Chaos, like we didn't want to we didn't want to leave. It just like the warmth that we had experienced in at BronyCon, it was just something that we didn't want to leave from. And I remember it was just so much. It was so awesome getting to stand there and talk with all of these people. With narrator Ori and Chaos, and so it was just so much fun. It was just so much fun, and I I remember we got a. I remember there was somebody else there in the lobby, another brony, um, but they were kind of off to themselves. And I remember we asked them if they could get a picture of of all of us together, and so we got a picture. Ori, Chaos, and myself got a picture, and then we asked this other brony there in the lobby if they could get a picture of all of us together, and so they took a picture of Ori. So they took a picture of Chaos, narrator, myself, and Ori all together in the lobby, and it was really such a magical moment. It was it was really really amazing. And I remember we before we left, whenever narrator and I also come back to the hotel. I don't remember if it was whenever we came back to get our stuff, the final bits of our stuff, the merch, or if it was whenever we came back to get the cooler. But I also remember we ran back into Pi to Soccer Swag again, and Dash Fan. And I didn't know that they were staying in the same hotel that we were. I didn't know any of these people were staying in the same hotel. That would have been awesome if we would have known that. But I remember we ran into them, and Pi and myself got to say farewell. Um, Not goodbye, but we got to say see you later. Talk to you hopefully soon. We got to say bye there, Dash Fan and myself as well. And then I remember in the lobby, uh, I keep thinking I keep thinking that that narrator, myself, Ori, and Chaos just we had just one big group hug, all four of us, and I remember Ori was starting to tear up, and I think Chaos might have been as well, and it was making me. I was starting to tear up as well because I didn't want to leave, and like just seeing all these amazing people here, it was just so cool. And I remember um, we they had to leave to catch their flight. They had to leave and head to the airport to catch their flight, and our checkout time was I think at 11. I think it was, and I think by this point it was like 10 a.m. And so we said bye. We didn't say goodbye because we didn't want it to be the last time that we would speak. You know, so we said bye. Talk to you hopefully sometime online. Uh, Same thing basically Pi and I said, and I remember so after we said bye, we waved, and um, I remember narrator and I went back upstairs. We got our merch, and we carefully, gently carried our merch back down to the vehicle as if we were carrying like a couple of cart of cases or cartons of dozen of a dozen eggs in our hands. Um, he had some posters, and I had all the merch that I bought, and so we carried all of that back down to the vehicle, put it in, and carefully put it in. Like, we both tried to make sure that we put our stuff so that it would not slide back side to side and get crushed, and also tried to put it in there. I also tried to think ahead, like what if we have to stop suddenly. So I wanted to make sure the stuff, nothing would go flying. And so after carefully placing everything inside the vehicle, I remember we were going to walk back up to the Washington Memorial Monument, and so we left out of the parking garage and we started walking back up the street, different direction than in the direction of the convention center. And I remember we started walking, and I managed to get a couple of videos of that as well. And I remember we ended up walking by um, what was, I think it was we walked by on the left side as we were walking down the street. We walked by, I think it was the Pope John Francis Prayer Garden. And it was a beautiful little garden. We didn't get to go in, but it was a beautiful little garden. And there was also, I remember over on the right, way across the street, we saw this beautiful cathedral. Gorgeous, gorgeous architecture. Um, Gorgeous design. And then we finally managed to find, we had to stop and look at a map that they had on a street corner. But I remember we managed to make it to the Washington to I think it was the Mount Vernon Historical District and the Washington Memorial Monument. And I managed to get a couple of videos and a few pictures of that as well. And I remember as we were walking also on the street, we also passed by a little sign in front of a restaurant that said BronyCon beer. And I had to get a picture of it because it was just too good not to. And we also were walking by, as we were walking down the street, we happened by, there was this other person that started walking with us, and they had also been to BronyCon. And I remember we started talking to them, and we found out they came from New York. And so here they were down in Baltimore, and we told them where we were from. And so they, I think, were back on their way to meet up with someone as well. And so we ended up again. We went our separate ways. And I remember narrator and I before we found before we found the Washington Memorial Monument. I remember we stopped by this little restaurant, this little sub shop, and it was called Potbelly. And I remember we walked inside, and one of the cool things that I really loved about it, I mean, it was a really clean, it was a really clean little place. And I remember as we sat eating, I remember as we walked in, there was a cooler on the far side of the wall as you walked in that had sodas inside of it. And you just got what soda that you wanted, and then walked up to the counter and told them what you wanted on your sub, and they fixed it right there. And it was really friendly people. It was such a it was a really inviting atmosphere. And that particular cooler where they had the sodas in, I'd never seen a design like that before. And I remember after we got our food, we sat down and we started eating, and it was a quiet little shop. And I remember looking up at the wall. Unfortunately, I didn't get a picture of it, unfortunately, but I remember seeing pictures on the wall of what Baltimore looked like back in the 40s, back in the 1940s, and back in the 1950s. And it was just so cool, like seeing the heritage hanging there on the wall. And it made me realize right there how proud that Baltimore was of its history. Like it was just hanging right there. And it felt great to be able to see that. And I remember once we finished with our food, or rather with our subs, I remember narrator gave me the receipt that he got from his food. and he ended up he signed his name on it, his YouTube channel name, and he said that that was his autograph, and that was really cool. And yes, I still have it. I still have that. I still have that. I kept that receipt in the bag with all of my BronyCon, all of my Baltimore pamphlets and things like that, and it's all together with my BronyCon merch. So thanks again, narrator, for that. And I remember once we found the Mount Vernon Historical District, and I was able to get some pictures and some video, a little bit of video of the monument. I love the garden, like to the side of it, and we didn't get to go in. I don't know if you can go in the monument itself. We didn't try, but I remember we turned back and we started back walking back in the direction of what we thought was the parking garage. It turns out we ended up taking the wrong street at some point, and I remember we ended up running into a woman and asking her for the direction to get back to Pratt Street. And she told us which direction to go, and we started going in that direction. And I remember at one point, we come back out onto a street, and we were trying to figure out exactly which way that we were supposed to go. And then I happened to turn and look down towards the right side. I turned and looked towards my right, and I remember seeing a section of the street where it turned black, and there was like a railing, a metal railing. And I remembered we walked by that. It was at I want to say Starbucks, and I remember no, it was 7-Eleven. It was 7-Eleven, and I remembered that black street because we had to walk by that every time because it was just above Royal Farms. And so as soon as I saw that street, I realized, okay, we got to go this way because this way leads to the Baltimore Convention Center. So we started left again at that time, and we started walking back up the street. We made it. We walked by the hotel and made it back to the parking garage, and then we got in his vehicle and we started leaving. We pulled out of the parking garage, and he set the GPS, and we started back out of Baltimore. And I remember whenever we got on the interstate, which didn't take long at all, we got out of Baltimore itself and got on the interstate. And I remember as we were driving out of Baltimore, I remember turning to my right, and out the window I could see the inner harbor. I could see part of the city, right there. And I remember looking at it and just feeling, I knew at that moment, I remember feeling like there was a part of me that was still there. And I knew at that moment there would always be a part of me that would forever be there in Baltimore. And it kind of feels like a little string, like a tether that is still attached to my heart, and that string goes back to Baltimore. And it will forever be there. No matter where I go, no matter where I roam, that string is like that little invisible string is still attached to there, and it will forever stay there. And I remember looking out the window and seeing Baltimore, and I didn't want to say goodbye because I felt that saying goodbye would be too final. And I didn't want to think that I may never get to go there again. And so I just said, I remember quietly, like in my head, I remember thinking, thank you. Thank you, Baltimore, for having us. Thank you for having us. And I remember thinking to myself, farewell. Farewell, Baltimore. Not goodbye, but farewell. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again. And I remember I was so thankful that I got to experience that. I was I was so thankful that I got to experience that. And I remember I remember thinking, Lord, thank you for blessing me to be able to experience this weekend. Thank you for letting things work out so well and for letting everything be okay and for blessing me to experience this. Thank you. And I remember as we started back down the interstate, once again, I remember we just talked all the way, and our next destination was the Katosin. That's what we called it. That's what we both called it. So I apologize to anybody if it's wrong. If it's pronounced differently, please let me know in the comments. But we called it the we called it the Katosin Wildlife Preserve, and that's where we ended up stopping on our way back. And it was a beautiful little animal reservation. And I remember we pulled off the main road and found we drove up this little like a one lane road until we found it. We pulled in and stopped, and I remember walking in, and there was like a little counter, and they had like a lot of like animal merchandise and like wildlife merchandise and stuff, like over on both sides. And I remember we got inside the park, and I remember as soon as we stepped inside, I ended up taking a picture of the park because of the wildlife preserve because it was really lovely. Like I remember taking a photo of just how that it looked as soon as we stepped outside, and we found a map. And I remember narrator wanted to go um to the where the birds were, the bird preserve. I forgot what that was called. He wanted to go there, and so we stopped by there, and he actually went inside and uh, basically he actually like let the birds like land on his arms, and he actually got to feed them. Um, I didn't go inside because I used to be allergic to feathers years ago whenever I was little, and I don't really come in contact with feathers that often. I like real feathers, and so I kind of was a bit paranoid about the concept of getting that close to birds, that many of them, and I didn't want to end up turning it into a tomato, and so I thought, yeah, okay, I might want to set this out. Um, so I let him go inside and feed them, and I remember we stopped by uh, another part of the preserve where he got to feed a goat. No, I think it was an alpaca. I think it was an alpaca. And then I remember we walked by the like a part of the park that had like snakes and spiders, and I'm like, nope. If you want to go inside, you go ahead, but I'm staying outside. I'm staying right here. And I remember we walked by some dingoes, and I got to get a picture of some dingoes, pretty cute. And then I got some pictures of some ducks, and then there we walked by a Bengal tiger. I think it was a Bengal tiger part of the park, and I remember the woman said there that they were brother and sister. There was a male and female, and that they were brother and sister. And I believe she said that recently the sister actually had cancer not long ago, and I think maybe she had went through treatment because she said that she was fine now, like cancer free, I think. And so that was really cool. But they were beautiful, and it was cool that both were brother and sister. That was really cool. And I remember getting a few other videos of and pictures of the park itself that we were in. And I don't remember how long that we were there for. It wasn't a long time. Um, but I remember we came back out and got in the vehicle and got back on the interstate. And then I remember we started back down back towards West Virginia. And I remember at one point, as we were heading back, on our way back, we ended up, I remember heading back the opposite way, on the interstate. I remember we passed by an old, what looked like a 30s or 40s, car, and I love antique vehicles, and so as soon as I saw it, I'm just turning and looking at it. And then, as we started making our way out of Baltimore, I mean, uh, out of the city of Baltimore, we got to this we got to this residential area as well, and we drove through there, and I remember we passed by this. I remember seeing what I think was like a 67 to 69 Chevy Corvette, uh, sitting outside of somebody's house, on the street corner, or the edge of the street, and I remember seeing that, and I remember like we just talked all the way back, and at one point I happened to notice a and I remember I noticed a 18-wheeler with a flatbed trailer was passing us, and I've never seen anything like this personally in my life, but this thing had three military Humvees, H1 Humvees, had three Humvee H1s, military, on the trailer. And as soon as I saw this, I managed to get my camera and managed to record it. And it was just so cool seeing these three beauties being transported. So I've never seen anything like that before, so it was so cool to see these three beasts being transported like that. And um, I don't know if if they had been taken out of service and they were on their way to some sort of auction place, or if maybe they were being transported to another, maybe somewhere else because for use. I'm not really sure, but they were beautiful Humvees. And then I also managed to capture a little video at one point of us driving by while the sun was setting, and I couldn't get a whole lot of it because at this point we were back in West Virginia, and so there was like a lot of trees on the side of the highway. But it was so cool to be able to see that. And then I remember at one point as well, whenever we got back to Virginia, uh, I managed to capture the sunset as well as we were driving by. And I remember I managed to capture a couple of videos of the sunset, and even a video at night, showing a crescent moon, that happened to be above. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, Luna, Princess Luna. And I remember as we were while the sun was setting, I remember a couple of different things that the conversation that narrator and I were having. I remember we were talking. It was just before that, I think I had found out that they were going to be making a Top Gun 2. And so we were talking about Top Gun, and I remember there was a movie, I think kind of similar to Top Gun, that he suggested that I need to check out. Uh, I can't remember what the movie was, so narrator, if you remember what that movie was, please let me know in the comments. It was a movie kind of similar to Top Gun, or it was a spy movie, but I can't remember what it was. I have it on this video here. I have it on this video. I was recording, I'm pretty sure, at that time, but you'll probably see this before I find that. So, I mean, but hopefully you'll see this. So please let me know if you remember. If you don't, that's okay, because I should still have that. I'm pretty sure I was recording at that point, but I also remember telling him that he needs to check out the anime, Panty and Stocking with Garter Belt as well. I remember telling him that. And I remember both of us we were talking about how I don't think either of us, I know I didn't, and I keep thinking that he said he didn't know about DC Superhero Girls, where Lauren Faust had actually worked on that as well. And so I believe both of us were saying that we needed to check out DC Superhero Girls. I have. It's great. I love it. And I remember, um, as we were on our way back and it started getting nighttime, we were getting closer and closer to. Sorry, I said Virginia all this time. It was, but I remember we got back to as we were approaching Bluefield, West Virginia. I remember I had to text my mother because her and that same cousin um, that met up with us on Wednesday morning um, were supposed to meet us at. I remember they were supposed to meet us at a mall, and that morning I had already by this point my phone battery sucked. My old phone at that time, it sucked. The battery was terrible. It did not hold a charge as long as it should have, and I remember um, managing to. By this point, I had used both of my spare phone chargers, and I remember I had before this I had connected my second and last spare phone battery charger, and so I was running on the last bit of power from my phone, and so I had to text her and let her know that we were where we were, and I remember the GPS told us to go down, told us a road to go down, an exit to take, and this was my fault. I will admit it, it was my fault. The GPS, I thought it was directing us to a different road, the way that it looked on the GPS, and so I told narrator to take that road. He did. I was wrong. We ended up on some one lane road, some one lane residential road, stopped in some guy's driveway, and it was literally just one. It was a one-way street, and I remember it was by this point it was probably like 10 o'clock at night, and we stopped, and the GPS was trying to tell us which way to get. The GPS was recalculating. It was like, where the frick did you take us? And I remember it was my fault. It was totally my fault. But I look at it myself like, it's one of those comical things that just happens, and it's still something that I still laugh at today. And I remember we we the GPS recalculated, took us back on the road, and we managed to make it to the now closed. I mean, well, it's open, but I mean, it was 10 o'clock at night. It was closed. Uh, the the parking lot, and we pulled in, and I remember uh we stopped and we started getting. I remember my mother text me that they were waiting outside of Hobby Lobby, and so I remember we stopped and we started getting all of my stuff out of the vehicle, or I got all of my stuff out of the vehicle and put it back into my mother's SUV. And I remember then narrator told me uh, he surprised me. He told me that I remember narrator told me that I remember at the con whenever he said that he bought a couple of plushies for a friend. And I thought back to at the con, he did. He bought a couple of little plushies. One of them, both was of Blazing Star. The other, kind of the other BronyCon mascot, uh, the Bat Pony Blazing Star. One was like a little plush, and one was like a little chibi plush pony. And I remember whenever he bought them, he said that he was getting those for a friend, and I didn't think anything about it at all. And I remember there in the parking lot, I said, yeah. And after he said, do you remember? I said I bought them for a friend. I said, yeah. He handed me those two plushies, and I was just shocked. I was just in awe, and I remember thanking him and telling him that that really meant a lot to me. And and I still cherish those. Um, and I never will, like, every time that I see those, I always think about whenever he gave those to me, and he told me that he got them for a friend. And so narrator, again, I really appreciate that, man. Like, even though it was a year ago, it still means a lot to me, and thank you. I never have forgot that, and it still means a lot to me, so thank you. We stood there talking, all four of us, a little bit longer, and then uh, we figured after a few minutes, we figured narrator probably. I mean, we figured probably best to go ahead and leave and let narrator go ahead and head on, head on back home because um, he still had, I think, like 4 more hours to drive before he got home, and so we figured, okay, we probably shouldn't keep him too long because I didn't want him to fall asleep at the wheel, which he's used to staying up late like me, so I told him to text me whenever he made it back home safely, and so I remember we got back in the vehicle and we started back home, and we followed narrator kind of followed us out of the parking lot, and then he drove by us as he was on his way to the exit ramp or to the on ramp or to turn around, and I remember my mom happened to honk her horn as we drove by him. And I remember the cousin that was sitting in the back seat told her, "Better watch out. You'll scare the crap out of him if you do that." And so narrator, and it was like 3 or 4 hours after that. He texted me and told me that he made it back home. And so narrator, thank you again. Thank you so much again for offering to meet up with me and to take me to BronyCon, and thank you again for uh, thank you so much for that. I really really appreciate it. It really meant a lot to me, and it was great hanging out with you. It was great talking to you, and again, thank you for those little plushies as well. Again, it really means a lot to me, and I consider you a friend as well. So thank you so much. I really really appreciate it, and I really hope that we get to hang out again sometime. I really hope we can. And I know that we would have a lot of fun. And so again, thank you. Thank you so much. And it really really it really meant a lot to me. And so thank you. I'm so glad that we got to hang out. I'm so glad that we got to hang out during BronyCon. I'm so glad we got to experience. I'm so glad that we got to experience everything that we got to. And so again, thank you so much for for giving me a ride there and for giving me a ride back, and thank you. It really really meant a lot to me, and it still means a lot to me. So thank you so much. And then I remember on our way back after after narrator and I parted ways. Um, I remember on the way back home, we still had 2 hours before we got back home, before I got back home. And I remember my mom and this cousin were asking me about the trip, what Baltimore was like, and I remember at one point, and this is something I'll also never forget, is because I remember while we were on our way back, I remember at one point I made a mention that in one of the restaurants I got a soda, and I remember this cousin, and you'd have to pretty much know the complete circumstances, but here in the South, or at least here where I live, people don't call soda soda. They call it pop. Yes. And I call it soda. I used to call it the other word, like for years I called it that. But early in 2019, like around January or February, I started calling it soda. I started calling it soda because soda is more universally known. So I started calling it that. And I remember I called it soda, and I remember this cousin, remember she said soda, and I said, yeah. And she was like, oh my gosh. And she said something about, you've been up in Baltimore for 4 days, and already you're calling it that. And I said, I started calling it that way before I went to Baltimore. I remember she said, we are Southern, we call it pop. And I said, you might call it that. I said, you go ahead and call it that. I call it soda. That's just me. And it made me think for a moment, like, I couldn't help but think, okay, she really thought. 4 days in Baltimore, or 4.5, and already I had adapted to it like that, that I was calling it soda. I mean, th- I'm not exactly, I'm not as southern as she is. I'm not as southern as she is. And I've been like that for a long time. Longer than she thinks. But I remember once we got got like an hour from home and I recognized the territory and everything, it felt so different. Like those 4.5 days I was in Baltimore, I was I had kind of already adapted to the traffic and to the concept of seeing the buildings and everything. And so here it was nighttime. It was like 11 o'clock at night in Virginia, and not a whole lot of traffic, no gridlock, and it just, I'll be honest, it felt foreign to me. This was home, but yet I had to readjust. I had to readjust to getting back home. And I remember whenever we got back home and we stopped, and I remember we pulled onto the bridge and I saw my driveway, I saw my street light, I saw my house. There was a part of me, and by this point it was like midnight, and I remember there was a part of me that felt, I'm home. I'm home. But at the same time, I felt I want to go back. I want to go back. And I remember opening the door and putting my foot down on the concrete, down onto the bridge. And if you watch my other videos, the first video of arriving in Baltimore, whenever I put my foot on the concrete, I felt like that scene from SpongeBob. In Baltimore. Now, I felt like I'm home. This was the last time that I put my foot down on concrete was in West Virginia. Now here I was in Virginia back home, and it just, I remember carrying my stuff up and putting it on the porch, walking inside, and I remember greeting the cat. I, I remember, I remember walking inside, and that night whenever I took a shower in my own bathtub, it was mixed, like I remember the room, the hotel, the shower, walking in, and behind the door, part of the door on the back side, the wood had been chipped, and so you could see like the lighter wood behind the smoother part of the door, and the bathtub had just a shower curtain that you could pull across. And here I was in my bathtub with shower doors that I could roll to the side, and the last time that I'd taken a shower was in Baltimore. And so here I was back home, and I kind of missed it. And even now, a year later, I found myself a couple of times closing my eyes in the shower and imagining being back in that room again. And I remember that night whenever I got in bed, I laid down and closed my eyes, and I can't say it was more quiet. I can't really say that because sleeping in that hotel room in Baltimore, it wasn't loud like you would think. Like once or twice, I remember hearing a siren go by, but otherwise, you didn't hear like a lot of honking horns or sirens going by, every little bit. No, it was surprisingly, it was still quiet in that room. And so here I was back in Virginia, and I remember in my room, I mean, in my own in my own bedroom, and just laying there, and closing my eyes and thinking, it's over. And I remember I didn't want it to be over. You know, I didn't want BronyCon to end. I didn't want that Baltimore trip to end because I thought, you know, I leave Baltimore, come back home, I'll return to my normal life. I still miss that excitement. I still miss that excitement. And but I remember laying in bed and closing my eyes and thinking, I'm back home. And I kind of had to readjust. The first day that I went out for the first time that I went driving after that, it took me a bit to readjust, you know, to actually getting to drive again myself and just, you know, seeing the mountains and around me, you know, no buildings. But don't get me wrong, I love Baltimore. I do. I love Baltimore, and it's definitely someplace that I would love to visit again. But I can say it's feels good to it did feel good to be back. There's not a whole lot of traffic here where I live. There's not a whole lot of traffic, and you have mountains around you, and you know, but still, there's still a part of me that resides in Baltimore, and there always will be. And then I remember laying in bed and thinking to myself, I need to make a video to let people know, you know, document my BronyCon trip. And so it was a few days after before I got to do that. But that was my trip that was my trip to Baltimore. That's the final video. This is the final video in my BronyCon remembrance video, detailing the things that happened over that. And again, Lord, thank you so much for blessing me to be able to experience that wonderful weekend, and thank you for letting everything go okay. And Lord, thank you so much. And narrator, thank you for taking me there and for letting me share a room with you. And thank you so much for bringing me back. And thank you again. Thank you too for such a fun weekend. It was great hanging out with you, and I would love to be able to do it. I would love to be able to do it again at hopefully, Lord willing, at another con sometime. Hopefully we can. And to the other people that I got to experience, you know, that I got to meet as well. Thank you all so much thank you so much as well. You know, Ori, Chaos, um, Pi, Dash Fan, Swirled at Bay 82, Loquacious of Heard. Thank you all. Thank you all. It was great hanging out with you guys, all of you. What chance that we got to, and I would love to be able to do it again. I hope we can. I really hope we can. And Johnny Fireflame, um, you know, Apple Geek. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. And I would love to be able to hang out with you guys again sometime. I would love to. So thank you all as well. And it was great. But BronyCon was the most. It was the most amazing weekend of my life. And a year later, I still haven't had a weekend like that. So I wanted to make the series of videos both to document, both as a tribute, both as a 1-year anniversary and a tribute video honoring BronyCon. And I also wanted to do it to document my memories as well, because I want to preserve everything that I can. And I don't want to forget anything. And I feel better knowing that I've got all of these videos now detailing all of this. And I wanted to do it for that as well, to capture everything and preserve it. So thank you again for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed these videos, and thanks again for joining me. And now we shall, I guess, return back to our regularly, somewhat not exactly scheduled videos. But thanks again for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video that I do. Take care.